And welcome back to Daily Justice. I'm Dave Erickson. Our topic today, overcoming discrimination, Washington's LGBTQ plus adoption landscape. My guest is Mark Hodgson, family law attorney here in Spokane, Washington. So Mark, what are some of the biggest legal challenges that LGBTQ plus individuals and couples face when pursuing adoption here in Washington?
Well, I'd say Washington is a pretty progressive state. Like, let's get that out in the open right now. And even with progressiveness, you still have marginalized people, such as LGBTQ+. And just even saying it, as we even talked before this broadcast, saying LGBTQ+ on the air is difficult. There's a lot of different categories. So we aren't necessarily catering towards that. This is more towards specific issue that has actually been raised with the current administration. And I know politics, we're not supposed to talk about that on the air. However, there are some very real questions with LGBTQ plus couples. And so that's really what we're trying to address, is the differences that could occur now that so many things have been left to the states and we're only 30 miles away from Idaho. Most of all, whether or not the adoption will stay valid, or whether or not someone on a birth certificate will stay valid after, if some of these laws get repealed. So what our service mainly is sort of a belt and suspenders approach for people who could be on the birth certificate and still possibly take a challenge to their ability to be a parent.
So how have recent laws or court rulings improved or complicated this process?
I think the current administration and executive order is largely complicating this issue. And even the Dobbs decision over the abortion rights issue has left so many things going to the states. And I think Spokane's a really good example where you have a fairly progressive state like Washington that I think a LGBTQ couple could get legally married and have a child, and then you're not going to face a problem. Whereas 30 minutes away, if you're to move to, say, or even 15 minutes away, move to Post Falls, then you could run into some real different issues. And I can explain that. For instance, you're on the birth certificate, right? And let's say you and I are a couple. Well, biologically, we can't have a child, okay? So what we're going to do is probably have a child through other means. And so if we do that, you and I would both be on the birth certificate. Once the child is born, it would be legally coming into our household. However, if anything were to happen, there's a real concern in these communities that a state could invalidate the person who's non-biological as a parent. And that's the concern with the new laws, is somebody who was a parent, acted as a parent, the child recognizes as a parent, could simply be removed from that status, for instance, in the case of a death, by executive order or just some law that the state creates. Because as we know, Idaho laws are very different than Washington laws.
Are there any misconceptions for LGBTQ adoptive parents that they may encounter more often?
Well, I think there's exceptions, but I think it's a lot of societal misconceptions that, a same-sex couple or a same-sex is almost an antiquated term these days, but biologically same-sex couple would be sort of less adequate than, the traditional marriage of a cisgendered female and a cisgendered male raising a child and doing all those things. I mean, I think I've seen in my practice that there's plenty of screwed up families that have cisgendered people as parents. There's no guarantee as to being a good parent. Yeah, I would say they definitely run into it. And then if there's some sort of an alternative lifestyle, such as a transgendered person or something like that, I do think that they can run into, quite frankly, bigotry and, those types of things openly. Maybe not so much, I don't really see that in the courts here in Washington. I really don't. I don't think I've ever seen bigotry in the courts here in Washington. But I do think I've seen some common misconceptions between people who look different, who behave different, who may be great parents. They just may look different and have pink hair. And those types of things can create biases. But I don't think I've ever seen anything from the courts.
One last thing, are there specific steps that you would recommend to protect these families legally?
Well, I mean, this is funny because the first time I did one of these adoptions, and what they really are is you would take two people that are on the birth certificate, and that's really what I wanted you to come here and ask me about, was you take two people, both of them are on the birth certificate. It could be cisgendered males, it could be trans, it could be anybody, two people that have chosen to be together and raise a child, and they're both equal parents under that basis. So you start with that, and then the one that is not the biological parent would then adopt. And what that does is really, it gives peace of mind. The first time one of these came across my desk, the very first time, I said, you don't need it. I honestly said, I don't know why you would need this. You're on the birth certificate. However, given the variance in state law and executive order coming from Washington, D.C. right now, I think what this process does, and it's a very economical adoption, it's not like a normal one where you're trying to track down the person who disappeared or somebody's out on the streets. These are two people that love this child, that are active parents, that are on the birth certificate. They're oftentimes just amazing people. You simply just go through a legal hoop. And so what you're trying to do is give these people not only legal standing, but also peace of mind. And hopefully that's all I'm doing. That is all I'm doing, is giving peace of mind. I would be hoping that this will never be used. However, there are several of these. It's almost a nationwide trend, and I'm happy to do them. I think I don't belong to one of those communities, and I personally am a 53-year-old white male, so I cannot say that I'm marginalized in any way, shape, or form. So if you're one of these communities and this is a concern for you, I can see why. And we can actually alleviate that. We can do it quickly. We can do it easily and economically.
For more expert legal insights or to get trusted help for your situation, visit HodsonLawOffices.com or call the number on your screen to schedule your free consultation today. There's also a direct link below this video.